The Battle of Berlin started January 16, 1945, when Russia reached the German front and then surrounded Berlin from all sides. But before the battle was over, Hitler and many of his followers committed suicide. This catalyzed the German surrender on May 8, 1945. How could the world's most powerful country be brought to its demise by the Soviet Union, a country thought not to be a threat? World War II all began when Germany invaded Poland on September 1, 1939, with subsequent declarations of war on Germany by France and Britain. America later declared war on Japan after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and eventually almost every country was part of the war. Russia was able to defeat the invincible Germany through their victory at the Battle of Leningrad, the Battle of Stalingrad, and the Battle of Kursk.
Leningrad was the heart of Russia and the second largest city in the Soviet Union, making it an important target of the advancing German army. The siege of Leningrad was part of Hitler's Operation Barbarossa, the codename for Germany's invasion of Russia. The German siege began September 8, 1941 and ended January 27, 1944, with the Russian victory. It was one of the longest and deadliest sieges in history. The people of Leningrad anticipated the attack, and the entire civilian population mobilized for the construction of war fortifications. Several lines of defense were built around the city in addition to trenches constructed by civilians. Starvation of the people and relentless bombing of the city was Hitler's approach to winning at Leningrad. Hitler's plan worked in part because the majority of Russians fighting at Stalingrad were killed or died of starvation, but the Russians kept fighting and refused to surrender. With the arrival of General Georgy Zhukov, Russia began its offensive, rescued the city, undid the siege, and counterattacked as the Germans retreated. They were also able to sustain the defense of their city during constant German attacks by bringing supplies into Leningrad by way of Lake Ladoga. This lifeline brought military and food supplies in and took civilians out, allowing the city to continue resisting the enemy. Germans had already defeated Poland, Belgium, the Netherlands, the Balkans, and North Africa. Germany's success in France and Britain also made Hitler eager and confident to take over the Soviet Union. Germany's original plan was to conquer Moscow, then move to Stalingrad and later Caucasus in search of oil. Germany's crucial mistake was invading Russia in the midst of the Russian winter. The Germans were ill-prepared for winter and suffered as a result. Russia, on the other hand, was prepared and stopped Germany's advances into Moscow. To Hitler, Stalingrad had great significance because it symbolized the Soviet Union's leader, Joseph Stalin. The attack began on August 23, 1942, with bombings that destroyed the city. Germany once again repeated its mistake and was unprepared for winter. The army's food and ammunition shortage led to the death of 20,000 Germans a day in Stalingrad. Germany was already short on troops due to its casualties. He had the weak Italian, Romanian, and Hungarian troops guard their supply line. As Germany was becoming weaker, Russia was becoming stronger. They were receiving more clothes, tanks, and weapons than ever.
After Germany's horrible defeat at Stalingrad, Hitler planned for his next tactic. At this point, the Russians were mass-producing tanks, while the Germans were trying to advance instead of increasing their supplies. For approximately 2 months, Hitler readied his army. On July 4, 1943, the Nazis moved toward the Russian lines, and the battle began. Russia let the German army in, but could not withstand the Russian tanks. After failing on the northern front, Germany pressed on in the south and headed deeper past the Russian lines. The Russians were ready. What came next was the biggest tank war in all of history. Quickly, the Germans lost a majority of their tanks. Hitler finally ordered a retreat back to Berlin. Though the Nazis had given up in Russia, the Russians hadn't. The Russians pushed the Germans all the way back to Berlin.
When the Russian army was within a few blocks of Berlin, Hitler committed suicide. His death later resulted in Germany's surrender. Russia's well-equipped and tenacious army, plus the contributions made by its people in the Battle of Leningrad, the Battle of Stalingrad, and the Battle of Kursk, resulted in Russia's defeat of Germany in World War II. Hey, Mr. Greenstone.
Look at what you did to our perfect worker.
She's asleep. Hey, look, ready? Okay, wake up. Wake up.
And we've gone through 10 frappuccinos.
Yeah. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and we're still working on the project.
Still working. I blame you.
Yeah.